It is a holy day, a day of reckoning. For it is feature, please. The Hateful Void to the Delta Quadrant. My name is Joseph.
And I'm your co-host, Peter.
Peter, what episode of Voyager did we watch this week?
Season 1, Episode 4, Repression.
I see what you did there.
Did you?
Yeah, I do.
What I'm saying is, hey, Season 7, Episode 4, Repression. Season 2 called, and they wanted their basic ass plot back.
This is a very weird throwback, and it fits with the concept I have repeated a few times now, which is it's the last season of the show, so we should do the X thing, right? Like we need to have the X episode where we revisit something from earlier because we just want to feel like we're putting some kind of conclusion or wrapping some things up, even if there wasn't necessarily a plot line to specifically wrap up in that regard.
Joe, if you are correct in what you're saying, and this was Season 7 essentially saying, goodbye, Maquis plot, then what an awful fucking way to do it.
Yeah, this is it. I'm sorry to say that's exactly what this is. This is the end of the Maquis plot. This is the very last time. This is the last time the Maquis being the Maquis is relevant to a plot of Star Trek Voyager. This is it. This is the very end.
Regardless of how you feel about the topic, okay, the Maquis conceptually is 1/3 of the Star Trek Voyager formula, right? It's a Starfleet crew far from home in another part of the galaxy, forced to cohabitate a vessel with criminals and fugitives.
Right, exactly. This is the internal drama that drives along with the parallel main course, which is we're far from home and we need to get home. And what do we have to do that? There is this internal drama of, we also have a kind of class divide and a theological divide and a political divide within the ship, because we're starting with mostly Starfleet people, but this core of actual factual terrorists
that we were hunting,
that we were literally out here to put into space jail, that we now have to integrate into our crew, including having them be senior officers and the first officer to successfully get back home.
It should have been a vehicle, a bottomless pit wealth of plot, conflict, and character development and good story. And instead we got roughly a season, maybe and a half, if not just one season of actual focus by the show on the 1/3 of the crew that were space terrorists.
The last episode that actually factored this into the plot was Worst Case Scenario, which was itself almost a quaint throwback to the earlier period when it was relevant, right? So Worst Case Scenario, that was the episode where B'Elanna's poking around in the holodeck buffer and finds the Coworker Murder Simulator 2479.
Which, for the record, is a fantastic episode and easily one of my favorites.
One of the best episodes of the show. And the whole premise of the episode is based around this conflict is over and it has accidentally come back up because of finding this program, but not in real life. In real life, everyone thinks this is a fun diversion because they have long settled this issue between them. And the problem comes from the fact that Digital Seska comes to try and murder everybody. In terms of the actual plot of the show, I don't
Cyber Seska.
Cyber Seska. Okay.
Ooh,
I like
Cyber
that.
Sexy.
It sounds dominatrixy. Yeah.
I love it.
Which, let's face it, Seska, that's what she's into. I'm just calling it. I don't know if that's headcanon. I don't know if it's real canon, but I feel it. And I think the last actual episode where in the storyline this mattered was the season 1 finale. The fucking Care Bear stare
Space
My Little
friendship
Pony
is magic.
Space Friendship is Magic episode. Like where Janeway and Tuvok you train, and Tuvok takes them through training courses and eventually like goes in and saves one of them from toxic gas, and that's all they needed to do. And and
Cheese.
Chakotay punched Dolby.
That's where the cheese cripples the ship.
Correct.
Now, interestingly, worst case scenario. God, what season was that?
Very end of season 3, right before Scorpion Part 1.
I think we discussed it then. Like that was sort of the soft ending to Voyager, right? They weren't sure if they were going to get renewed, and I think by most accounts, worst case scenario felt like a spiritual. We're done, right? If we don't get renewed for another season, this is a great note to go out on. It does resolve a lot of stuff, and off it goes.
I don't think they were in any danger of getting canceled. I don't
but I still think that was like
a thing.
I
it felt like more we're closing the book on this part of the story, and that was literally the next episode. The Borg are introduced as a major antagonist. The next episode after that in season 4, you have 7 of 9, and the show is going in a completely different trajectory from that point.
I think
forward.
If you go back and reread the Memory Alpha, there's quite a bit of attention that gets called to that there was plans that was a good stopping point if they didn't get.
I agree with that idea. I'll grant that like if the show ended on that point, it kind of like okay, like I get that would be a good stop.
And to that end, I think had they played worst case scenario as episode 4 of season 7, it would have worked just as great in that position there. This story, however, is fucking terrible. This was a miserable episode to watch. It is the disgusting return of Detective Tuvok. So it is just a boring trudge to try and get through. That I think by the end left me feeling like it was one of those time thief episodes from early season 1, season 2, where it's just nothing of value gained or lost. You've got this real goofy episode in a bottle format that comes back up. Like the high point of this entire episode for me is that Smoldering Catcher puts his umpire vest back on.
He does. We see the final return of the Rainforest Cafe Maquis uniforms that date back all the way to Caretaker in their original configurations on everybody. Like B'Elanna's got that little jacket. You got Smoldering Catcher guy literally with his catcher gear, with his phaser rifle being the heavy.
This means that everybody, one of two things, everybody who was integrated into the Voyager crew took off the clothes they were wearing and said, gee, one day I might have to put this shit back on. So I'm just going to
fold it up real quick.
I'm going to fold it up and put it back under my bed just in case. And through all the shit they go through, right? All the near-death experiences they share, everyone hangs on to their shit for whatever reason.
Stevie watched this one with me, which she doesn't usually do these days, and she had the same reaction of like, did they just have that shit in their closet still? Why would you still have that outfit? It's awful.
Option 2, which is the dope option, I think, is that like you use the replicator as your clothes drawer, right?
Right.
And just say, okay, computer, give me Peter outfit Wednesday 3. And that the computer just has the, the file and configuration of everybody's dirty fucking...
Well, they've got the file because they put the stuff on when they go to the Cardassian murder cave that B'Elanna set up, to get those old feelings back. So, a few things for our listeners who may not have been here the whole ride, okay? There's a few long-term jokes that this, I think our commentary is going to depend on. We've already brought up one of them, which is the Smoldering Catcher guy. He's called that literally because of the outfit he wears here, Lieutenant Ayala. 2, Detective Tuvok being our least favorite thing. This goes only back to I think like the fourth fucking episode of the show.
Ex
Whatever the
post facto.
ex post facto when Tom fucks the shithead lady and it turns into a murder mystery directed by LeVar Burton, and it is just awful and boring as fuck. And was one of those first episodes of like, oh, this show might be bad. Like this is actively hostile to sentient life. And ever since then, every time an episode depends on Tuvok being the investigator slash detective, it is goes from one acceptable case, but only because there's a weird grinder hookup at the end, and then everything else is
Random
just
thoughts.
Yeah, random thoughts, and everything else is just different grades of terrible. And this is no different. He's not a compelling character in this circumstance because he's a fucking Vulcan. He's not showing any emotion. It's just a robot going through playing at being Sherlock Holmes. Sucks.
Story by Kenneth Biller, aka Kenneth Bewilder, directed by Rick Colby.
Rick Colby's last Voyager episode.
And what a turd to go out on. That's a real shame. Kenneth Biller likes Detective Tuvok. Random Thoughts was a Kenneth Biller. And I bet you if we dig up some of the other Detective Tuvok episodes, it'd be the same guy at the helm. We open up with a little grimy terrorist cave. And you've got some Bajoran guy who's chanting religious hymns and digging around paper schematics of Voyager.
It's kind of a dope blueprint. Not gonna lie, I would love to have it in my office.
I would love to have that in my office area as well, but you know what? I don't live in the fucking 24th century where I can't think of anything more barbaric than having trees murdered and turned into paper when you could just have, dedicated iPads laying all over the place. And this dude's holed up in some little Afghanistan shithole terrorist compound.
His Afghanistan terrorist cave.
Yeah. And I described the very clearly bad guy for this episode as the overaged, shitty looking front band guy, right? Like, this is the guy.
I get it. Okay. Yeah.
This is the guy playing at the bar next to the marina where rich people are docking their boats.
This is the guy who really almost made it big 25 years ago. Like, he was like really on the periphery. Maybe he even was signed to something, but things just did not work out, and he hasn't figured out something else to do. So, he plays for basically minimum wage at the local clubs, but like, he's got a little bit of a following, and he gets like charity work because he's been around for so long. That's this guy.
Yeah. He starts booping around his computer, and according to Memory Alpha, I was very impressed that you knew Chakotay's ship's name off the cuff the way you did, because oh geez, what episode was it? Chakotay was just talking.
He just called it a ship, and I'm like, it's called the Valjean. And
I'm like,
Chakotay, what the fuck?
How did I miss the fact that they revealed the name of that? I always just knew it as his little his El Camino that they used to cruise around. But yeah, the computer that Dirty Band guy is looking at has the crew roster for the Valjean, which is this a nod to Jean-Luc Picard?
Well, no, this is a nod to Les Miserables. Valjean was the protagonist of Les Miserables, the noble thief that was pursued by the avatar of law that one put him in prison. He spent 20 years in prison for stealing a loaf of bread and all that. So it's meant to invoke the sort of noble French rebel. Star Trek kind of has a hard-on for Les Miserables, particularly with the Maquis being a French word as well. There's a character from DS9 who is obsessed with the same comparisons. That's what it's supposed to be. That said, I don't think it's ever mentioned in dialogue over the course of the show, and this may be the only time you actually see it on screen, which is why it wound up in all the secondary material correctly, because on that screen when they're showing the crew of the Valjean, you see the name of it. Teaser's really quick. It's like a few seconds of this kind of obviously crazy Bajoran guy kind of going on about something, and then it is cut right back to Voyager.
We get to pick back up with Tom's bullshit, dragging his now wife, B'Elanna, to something he wants to do.
Yes, very on brand.
After the special effects spectacular drive, it's clear that Voyager was on a budget conscious episode. So all interior shots here with our very exotic location we get dragged to is a movie theater.
Yeah, a 1930s movie theater that somehow looks like a Holiday Inn.
Totally not a Regal Cinemas with some deco crap hanging up.
I do love that their outfits, their civilian outfits, because Tom Paris looks like he's in some sort of weird, sort of almost like the Chinese kung fu shirt thing going, except it doesn't go all the way down, and it's just kind of some comfy pajamas. And B'Elanna looks fantastic in this like black velvet dress. Like she's put effort in, right? Like she looks nice, got those guns showing from taking all those push-ups in 1997. She's still got surplus, obviously, doing great with that. And then meanwhile, like fucking Tom is wearing his goddamn PJs into the movie theater, like encapsulating the relationship. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Gets his popcorn out, sits him down. They start watching Creature from the Black Lagoon or something, and it's a 3D movie, which I do enjoy. B'Elanna making fun of the fact that he's used a 3D rendering device to project a 2D image on the screen that then becomes 3D with the assistance of glasses, and I think that encapsulates
that whole holding shot of her reaction to it, and then Tom Lake's reaction to it, and her just like looking at him repeatedly, like, "Why are you this way?" It was one of the better moments between them over the last few episodes.
So the scene plays out a little bit, and it starts to devolve into them fooling around. And Tom's like, people didn't come to the movies just to watch movies. And I was like, is that the real date here? It's not them here to watch a movie. It's them to like fuck in a theater with people around. Is this like safety net voyeurism? Because that's pretty kinky. Like that's what an interesting use of the holodeck. Not my cup of tea. And then we find out it's also not B'Elanna's either, as Tom deletes the entire audience so they can just go doggy right there in the row. But kind of like how we were joking about in Fairhaven when Janeway starts jumping on bartender Michael's bones. Like, what happens when you wipe the room out and there's still one person over, then you find out that, oh, we weren't alone after all.
Yes, and instead of what our supposition was back during our return to Irish Town, which is just somebody who was there drinking, part of the open door simulation, and just accidentally got caught up in the captain being horny.
Oh my God, I just saw the captain's nipple.
This is, in fact, what appears to be an unconscious body. And Tom's like, what the fuck? So the glitch? B'Elanna's like, no, that's Tabor, who is someone we have seen before. This is Ensign Tabor from the episode when B'Elanna didn't want to have surgery done on her by Space Mangala.
Oh, is he the guy that was complaining about the hologram?
Yeah, like, how dare you bring Space Mangala into this? Because my Bajoran family was wiped out by Space Mangala. That's this guy. That's Ensign Tabor. Same actor. Same dude from like 2 seasons ago. I don't know why they pulled this guy out and it's not Dolby. Like the lack of Dolby in a couple spots in this episode is the most unforgivable crime. Like there's clear spots where Dolby needed to be there providing the dialogue between the Maquis. Yet for some reason we could find the Tabor guy but not the Dolby guy.
It's conflicts in scheduling, I'm sure. So they turn the lights on. They find out, yeah, it's Tabor. Starfleet crew member has been knocked the fuck out. Let's call everybody down. Janeway's taking a look. He's in sick bay. And here comes Detective Tuvok. And Janeway turns to him and says, Tuvok, I'm putting you in charge of this investigation. It's like, it's a chief of security, fucking obviously.
Tuvok, I want this crime solved. Therefore, I've appointed Naomi Wildman as the chief investigator for this crime.
Tuvok, it's a slow week on the ship. We haven't been attacked and I'm getting bored. This might be fun. I'm going to appoint you for your incompetence so things don't get solved in a timely manner and we can have some fun with this.
If I actually wanted this solved, I would just appoint 7 of 9.
Yes. Yes. And yes, because unlike season 1 and season 2 episodes where Detective Tuvok gets to be front and center, you now have the smartest human in the universe on the ship who gets 0 seconds of on screen. She gets to walk out of an elevator, I believe, and that's about it.
Yeah, and then she's in the last shot in the movie theater too. I think this might be the first time in a long time, maybe ever, since she's been on the show. 7 of 9 has 0 dialogue. She's on screen momentarily, and that is it. She says nothing.
They put her in plot timeout. She must have been naughty. No, if Janeway really wanted the mystery solved, she would have appointed Detective Neelix, who gets shit done.
And dumps Trader's crew members into hell, so...
Judge Neelix. I am the law.
Would you like some Leonilla Roots too?
Double whammy.
We get a quick couple cuts here of Tuvok investigating. He goes back to Tabor's quarters. Someone's already in there. It also has a rank insignia. All the Maquis have the same provisional rank insignia, the bar rank insignia. So it's a nice visual indicator to know when someone's Maquis without, you have to be told in advance. So we've got another Maquis person in there that's a friend of Tabor, who's like, was getting him a book to read him. And Tuvok's like, I don't think that's going to work out for you, GTFO.
She's like, oh, well, I heard that, a familiar voice can help coax people out of comas. And it's like, yeah, Tuvok, you should know, man. Like, speaking of Neelix, didn't he drag you out of your coma with reading you stuff he stole out of your room back in the Simple Jack episode?
Oh, God, yes. That is exactly what happened.
What a fucking hater. Like, this is a proven medical procedure and you're just trying to
prove it on you, Tuvok.
I feel like it's been proven a few times. Like, people ending up in sick bay in a coma with their personal belongings strewn about by sticky fingers gets the job done.
They have a quick meeting in the ready room with Janeway, and Tuvok's like, it was someone on the crew. I think it was that woman I ran into earlier. And Chakotay's like, you sure about that? It seems weird. I guess I'll go, check my reports or whatever. And then gives Tuvok and Janeway a moment where Tuvok's like, yeah, I have a hunch that it's absolutely someone in the crew. And Janeway's like, that's weird. You're a Vulcan. Why are you hunching? And that's for me. That's for me to do. I hunch there's a trap. We go in it. That's how this works.
You sure that this isn't just like time traveling Lego blocks or something that might be knocking people out?
She alludes to that of being like, we run into weird shit all the time. Are you sure it's not weird shit? And he's like, no, it's definitely someone on the crew.
This is someone in the crew assaulting other crewmates. This hasn't come up since Lon Suter, who I coincidentally put in my brain.
Oh man, what a completely missed plot point. This episode could have been so much better if it was the return of Murder Lon out of his head.
How interesting you should mention about 6 lines of notes on my page here, Joe.
Yeah, like this, you would have had to, the whole last third of this episode would have to have gone thrown in the trash if it's just like the feelings of Murder Lon coming back to like reassert themselves. But we stand so hard for Lon Suter on this podcast that it gets repetitive, I know, but this really is a perfect opportunity to bring that back.
This would have been a shame. This would have been the Kess treatment, basically. If they dug Lon back up and like re-vilified him, I don't think he deserved that. I think
he had a redemption arc.
The right way to handle this is the only interesting thing about Tuvok, because Tuvok is a complete character. Tuvok does not have flaws. Tuvok is interesting when he's being a catty little bitch. when his logic gets turned off and he can real talk people, right?
Right.
And in the absence of those two things, joking aside, Tuvok has a very violent mind. And they've
Right.
never really fleshed out why that is. Like, we know that Vulcans are a very emotional race, and that's why they have to fight to keep that stuff in check. But my impression of Tuvok over the past 6 years is that he is darker than most for some reason. It came up very heavily in the Bewilder episode we just talked about, which was Random Thoughts.
Came up a lot in Tank Girl episode
Tank
as well.
Girl. And there's been a couple other times that this has popped up. Tuvok literally has footage from Event Horizon in his brain.
Mhm.
Okay. Tuvok's got some real dark shit going on in there. So I think if they wanted to make this episode relevant or interesting, instead of this goofy Maquis Bajoran cultist guy, whatever, give Tuvok a real Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde episode where he is forced to confront why it is he has this very dark part in him.
And you could even turn the suitor element from the heel to the face, which is to say his experience mind melding with Lon and helping Lon through taming his murderous side, to the point where Lon was filled with regret and remorse when he ultimately had to turn back to violence to save the ship, in his last stand. Could very well have been like a lingering presence in his own mind. He did mind meld with the guy.
If you're gonna give me hallucinations of some fucking rando I don't care about, get that Brad Dourif money out of there.
Yeah.
And give me some lingering hallucinations of a redeemed Lon Suitor coaching evil Tuvok off the ledge. That would have been a great episode for season 7.
It would also tie up all of the Maquis stuff. Like, even if you made this episode about what at core it is, which is like some old Maquis business comes back, at the end we have a big unresolved question, which is Tuvok manages to break his mind conditioning, but you never see how, why. It's just he apparently did at some point during the the events, and helps save the day, right? Oh, spoiler, I know, like, we're gonna get there the rest of our like half hour fucking talking about this. But instead of providing no explanation, the explanation could have been, he reaches in deep and Lon helps him figure, like, oh, you're having murder impulse problems. I know of these. Let me now help you. Well past the grave, let me repay you for what you helped me do. Beautiful. Would have been great.
Look at all that squandered potential. Right on brand.
We're really good at spotting this potential. That's our brand.
21 years too late. 21 years in a wrong state, in a wrong time zone too late. So we flip over to my favorite thing ever, an opportunity to bitch about flashlights.
Excellent. Yes.
We get some fucking Maquis, no-name jabroni, gets dispatched up into the Jeffries tubes, and he's going to fix things, and there's already word on the street that someone had attacked a Maquis crew member. And the lights go dark, and the doors quit working, and all of a sudden, another person's in the Jeffries tube, and a flashlight, a blinding flashlight's put on this guy's face, and he tries to radio people for help and escape. None of the technology's working, and the light starts coming closer. And I'm like, this is bullshit. Joe, if you've got a fucking light and it's strapped to your wrist and I have to point at you like I'm Superman flying with my fucking fist, like I'm about to 1-inch punch you, right? And you're gonna crawl on what should be all fours, but you're on all threes while trying to keep the flashlight up. Like, visualize what Tuvok looks like fucking doing this.
You ever see the third person view of characters in Cyberpunk 2077? They're like,
it's in their teeth.
Yeah, they're like super janky, and their arms are like above their head while they're doing shit. It's like that. He's like some weird Japanese horror film, kind of like 3-legged, like moving through the Jeffries tube.
A fucking hand coming out from the back of his head through the hair to grab the flashlight and hold it. what would have happened was that Tuvok would have had to admit to himself that the wrist flashlight is stupid and gone to the replicator and replicated like one of those lamps that you like is held to your head by a sweatband that joggers use, and that's how that would have to work. Lo and behold, the guy's not able to escape, and once you know, second Maquis guy turns up knocked out. So they pick up in the med bay, and the doctor's explaining to everybody that like they're not really assaulted, but they have been attacked, and there's micro fractures on their skull around the temporal lobe and the jaw, and fucking Tuvok standing there looking like he's trying to swallow a live fish, and everything seems off. And I'm like, this is the most guilty, fucked up, obviously wrong someone has looked on the ship since Tom was wearing a trash bag. I wonder
how good they were at noticing that, though. Like Tom, their valued friend and colleague, slowly wasting away while wearing a trash bag, and everyone's like, "Boy, Tom seems really into this new ship he got, but we should tell him he needs a shower." Like,
Tuvok's standing there looking around like a dog that just shit on the carpet, right? Like, this is very clearly Tuvok forcibly mind melding people, and like, how long are they going to string this weak ass plot along? And God bless them, they push it. They really go for the gusto here and drag this bitch out as long as possible.
So a bunch more bodies start showing up. Janeway and Chakotay are in sickbay talking to the doctor, and Chakotay's like, "Hey, take a look at the names. They've all been attacked. Guess what they all are?" Janeway's like, "Are they all a bunch of Al Qaeda members?" I do remember that you were all Al Qaeda members. And he's like, "Yes, they are. My people are being attacked by your people." I have that moment. It's kind of like dumb. It's just,
how great if that was season 2 when this was at all relevant and
it's
appropriate.
Just we're so past this being a thing. It felt awkward that Chakotay would go right to that.
Chakotay might as well have dropped an N-bomb. That's how out of place.
Whoa.
That's how out of place this dialogue is. Okay, you take all the stuff we said about B'Elanna struggling with her Klingon heritage in the Ron Moore episode last season and how it's way too late. Same deal here, right? So Chakotay gets all the Maquis together in a room up in, I think, probably the mess hall and starts telling people like, hey, we got to be careful. I want you to pair up. He said some other stuff. I was completely distracted by the fact that apparently there's a female Vulcan in the Maquis.
We've seen her before in the background, I believe. Yeah, I think we have. Maybe I'm just thinking of the scene the last time I saw this episode, but I swear we've seen the very severe cut red uniformed Vulcan lady in the past, and that she was Maquis affiliated, and we just never get any fucking history on her. Obviously, she doesn't even have a word of dialogue in this episode.
Man, the stories they could have told there, like, talk about something I never would have thought that would have been the case, but like,
I guess that's why you would buy Tuvok too, right? Like that you actually have Maquis true believers amongst the Vulcans.
Maybe, but I think you could have a really great rivalry or shitty relationship between those two. More squandered potential. I'm glad we were able to fit in. Geez, what's some of those clown episodes we just had to fucking barrel through?
In season 6, like most of it.
That piece of garbage where they were where Chakotay almost killed everybody trying to get a crusty old satellite. Glad we got that story instead of, Tuvok's feud with another Vulcan.
We're getting bitter.
Season sucks hurt me.
So they're having the big confab in the mess hall. There's Chell. There's the Bolian Chell. This is a character.
I remember him.
We haven't seen. I think we've seen Chell since Learning Curve. I think we have.
No.
Have we not?
Yeah, we have not seen him since that. We have not seen him since Space Friendship is Magic, where he went to the Tuvok boot camp and learned the power of love and compassion. He has a walkie-talkie with Torres, who is his partner, where he starts shit-talking pretty much the entire crew and accusing anybody and everybody of being the potential person behind assaulting the Maquis, including Special guest star Jerry Ryan, 7 of 9, as she walks off an elevator, smug in the fact that she has probably already solved this mystery and is choosing to keep the answer to herself.
Becoming more human by the day, by now enjoying Schadenfreude.
Yes. And Chell proves us that maybe space friendship wasn't magical after all, because all it takes is a few people knocked out, very clearly forcibly mind melded, for the honeymoon period to wear off and those old battle lines to start being redrawn.
6 years later, this motherfucker is all Alex Jones about how it's a conspiracy the moment there is turbulence. Jesus. All of you have been through so much together,
Yep.
right? There have been space whales that have been slain by the guy who narrated Civilization 6. Like, Civilization 4. Sorry. 6 was Sean Bean. You have beat the Borg like 8 zillion times. You've had like 3 bioweapons stored on board. 7 of 9 has shot up engineering at least 5 times. But yeah, now it's all a conspiracy. Like,
yep.
No camaraderie from Chell. None.
Nope. Pacing's real slow and goofy on this. It's interesting that this is Rick Colby's last episode. Rick Colby has had some great episodes under his belt, but I do, again, I feel like this is a real throwback to the early season stuff. It's not enjoyable and really bleeds through. It's hard for me to kind of comment on the episode because things go so slowly. I think the next...
I honestly forgot how slow it was. I had fond memories of it, and I don't know why. Like, it just takes forever to actually get to its fucking point, and then it just ends.
We find out that Chell has become separated from B'Elanna because she didn't want to walk around with him, probably because he's such a fucking negative Nancy.
Went to the Neelix school of wandering off by your fucking self and getting your goddamn lungs stolen.
Chakotay goes to track her down by himself.
Brilliant. Don't bring the Vulcan, the super strong person.
And finds her knocked the fuck out cold on the floor. We haven't seen B'Elanna this knocked the fuck out since the last time Tuvok knocked her the fuck out. Which was in our season 7 opener. Which was what? What was that?
Unimatrix Zero Part 2.
Unimatrix
Zero. He rose the pimp hand and just took it way back. And knocked her out of the fucking episode for 20 minutes. So firm was his pimp hand.
He knocked her out of the episode for this one again. So Chakotay's like, oh, snap. What is it? And I think this is kind of the big reveal now, finally, that, oh, wow, it's Chakotay who's the bad guy, just in case you haven't been paying attention.
Tuvok, you mean?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Just in case you've been paying attention to the episode at all. Yeah. Tuvok's actually the bad guy. There's a little scuffle. Much to my surprise, Chakotay is able to reach down and grab an emergency pipe.
Yes, he got his hands on a space pipe. I mean, it was obviously, this is this cargo bay, so he's right in the 7 of 9 gun nook. So I was kind of expecting a phaser rifle, but no, instead he gets a more dangerous weapon. He gets a space pipe. Tuvok immediately ready to deflect, and in fact uses the space pipe on him.
Listen, you gotta remember, you bring a space pipe into a space fight, that space pipe might get used against you, right? That's space pipe 101.
Now, this is not the case if you're a space Nazi, and Janeway has the space pipe, as we found out when all of the Hirogen decided to play act as Nazis. That's when a space pipe is always effective.
Very deadly. Chakotay gets knocked the fuck out. Tuvok, very perplexed at what's going on. I've tried to crack the code here in this case. At every turn, I'm thwarted. I'm trying to do everything within my power to figure out who's here, other than, really get detailed logs from the computer as to like where everybody was during this point, and oddly just grazing over yourself every time. He falls back to his quarters, aka Club Tuvok. I love Tuvok's mood lighting.
Oh yeah, he's got the most rad. I guess you would call it like 90s aesthetic when it comes to this sort of neon purple. He's got his Mortal Kombat robes sometimes. Not in this episode,
Yeah,
right?
no
Like
Shang Tsung here.
he's got a whole vibe in his quarters.
He gets his badass retractable sink out and washes his face down, strips off his duty uniform, so he's just in that goddamn purple sweater.
Your favorite.
I hate it. I hate that
And,
almost as I hate the fucking wrist flashlights.
and he starts having these visions of the creepy Bajoran guy, and eventually finds himself back in the holodeck where they're having CSI moments trying to figure out like these hollow images, of who this person was that attacked Tabor, and Tuvok has put it together, and he essentially finds out he's been covering his own tracks. He solves the mystery in front of the captain and Harry Kim, who, by the way, like he interrogated earlier, and Harry Kim gave him like a ton of sass and like was super shitty to a superior officer for no fucking reason. Except maybe, I guess, because they wanted to do a lot of like push-in shots of Tuvok swallowing super hard. Because like the generous interpretation of what's happening here, and to Tim Russ's credit, he tries his best to carry this in the performance, is that he feels super frustrated by this case because he knows subconsciously he is responsible, and he is just trying to get that knowledge to the forefront of his brain. Right? Like that's what's actually going on. He's trying to figure out who did it. He's the one doing it, and it's basically him trying to figure, out that he's the one that's responsible subconsciously. And this is him finally coming to bring that to fruition of like, oh, it's me all along, put me in prison. I don't know why I'm doing this, but it's me.
Look at me, I'm the great and powerful Detective Tuvok. I finally figured out the person clubbing everybody is me.
I was bored.
I'm so smart. I've created a crime, and I try. Well, wasn't that like the plot of Backdraft?
Yes, I believe it was.
What year did Backdraft come out? Is this another one of those like, ooh, we should rip this off? Can we get the 91?
Oh, that's man. That movie's
God, ew, that was Ron Howard did that.
Yeah, and that had Kurt Russell, right?
Yeah, Kurt Russell.
Because he was the bad guy. Yeah.
This is how much this fucking episode sucks, man. I don't want to talk about it.
Well, it's not. Fortunately, there's not all the bad stuff's behind us. Now the rad stuff is in front of us because now we get to talk about the batshit things they decide to do in the last couple acts.
People start waking up, and of all the people who wake up, it's Chakotay who they decide they're going to attach a doodad sticker box to the side of his neck for reasons, whatever. Tuvok, who I will point out, even in his distraught moment and running through the halls with just his turtleneck on, stopped to take the comm badge off of his jacket and put it onto his turtleneck. Just Tuvok things, I guess. I don't know. But he's locked up in the pokey, and Janeway is trying to coach him through some guided meditations because she did it one time with him, and now she figures she's a pro. Janeway, I feel like, is missing a lot of obvious cues here, and then foolishly decides that she's going to go into the brig with the very powerful Vulcan that could rip her limb from limb. And the hallucinations start ramping up, right? This isn't just a fleeting image of the Bajoran baddie, but now he's there actively communicating with Tuvok. And the plot starts to reveal itself that while on his undercover assignment, Tuvok was found out for being a spy by a radical within the Maquis movement whose methods were too extreme, even for the Maquis. They kicked him out, but before that happened, this guy was able to get Tuvok up on the operating table.
We get a little backstory of who this guy is, thanks to Chakotay. He is a Bajoran Vedic. Vedics are like Bajoran bishops in the sense of like in the religious ranking sense. They're higher ranking religious officials. They're not just like mere like Bajoran religious priests. They're They're like they've got some cachet. They've been around for a while. So this guy was apparently a fanatical Maquis member and deeply into mind control. Don't really get to know the last part of that. It's like why this,
Sounds like
guys?
he'd really get along well with Choke Daddy Tuvok.
Yeah,
I think they just came at each other the wrong way. I think there could have been a really great bromance here.
and what we see in the flashbacks is this guy worked his magic on Tuvok. He knew he was Starfleet. He had figured out that he was actually a Starfleet officer, knew his rank at the time, which they correctly referenced because he's lieutenant commander here. He was lieutenant back then. Good job, writers. Got a detail right. Appreciate you. And what we're starting to put together here as a consequence of context clues for the watcher, not necessarily for the actual characters in the show, is that all of these mind melds have been intended to plant different mind control commands into the people he's been putting them into, and he's been targeting Maquis to do it, so there's probably some kind of connection there. And sure enough, for some reason, he taps his comm badge, and he's like, hey, Chakotay, go be a terrorist again, but in Bajoran. And he's like, sweet, I'm on it. And then we get to see the best Chakotay montage ever as he goes in room to room, blasting people like he's Danny DeVito. He walks into sick bay with his phaser and is like, turn off the EMH. And then Tom's like, Commander? And he's like, he just blasts him and then gives the code word to B'Elanna. And B'Elanna's like, yeah, fuck that guy. Let's keep being terrorists. They go up to the bridge. They're like, Harry's like, oh, hey, Commander, glad you're back. I'm glad to be back. Blam, 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 blam. Just blows everyone away. It's fantastic.
You would think that in a situation where the majority of the crew had played the shit out of the coworker murder simulator, you know, the one where the Maquis have a fucking uprising, that the training simulation people played the shit out of might have actually paid off in the end. But no, everybody gets got, and before you know it, the ship's back under Maquis control. Insert all the jokes we made about people digging out their dirty ass terrorist clothes and
Here's
putting
what
them
I
on.
don't fucking understand. First, it's like 7 of them are supposed to take over the whole ship. There's like 140 fucking people on this ship, and 7 of these dudes, mind you, a whole bunch of people are packing heat right now, right? So it's not like there's like no gats lying around. 7 of them apparently act with such audacious violence that they're able to seize the entire ship and confine the rest of the crew. That's suspect point number 1. Suspect point number 2 is one of those 140 people is known workplace violence auteur 7 of 9. How the fuck is she not involved in like resisting this nonsense?
I didn't even consider that. Like my I just wrote 7 of 9 off as like she would have been able to solve this plot in like 14 seconds. And then I just kind of like, I have to mentally forget she exists, which clearly Kenneth Biller also clearly forgot she exists, because as you just pointed out, like she has besieged this ship 4 times maybe now, right?
Yeah.
And what could they have possibly done to put her in check short of someone going up and roughly grabbing her by the arm?
Right, which is the way you ennobilize all women, which they do to Janeway in this one. If you notice, Chakotay grabs her by the arm, therefore immobilizing her.
What the fuck? What about 7 though? Like, they didn't even have. They couldn't even be bothered to like pump knockout gas or some bullshit into her cargo bay to handle her, or just lock the fucking door.
Or like when she's regenerating, like short circuiting her or whatever. Like zero explanation of how 7 of 9 is neutralized in all this, or like how they just neutralized the other 130 members of the crew, including 24 other Maquis people who didn't get the night juice.
I fully believe. Well, I can believe that Voyager is not good at repelling internal attacks. They've fallen victim to just about every strand of space hillbilly that they've encountered, with very few examples where they're able to hold their own. So I get it. Is Neelix in this one at all?
He's like in the very end in the theater, and that is it.
I'd like to see him fuck some people up too.
Yeah, like him and Seven of Nine back to back.
There's the buddy cop adventure I want. What was that? The Schwarzenegger one was it with Danny DeVito where they're
twins?
No. Was it Red Heat? Is that the one where Schwarzenegger was the Russian cop?
Oh yeah. I do think it's
and
Red
he's with
something.
Buscemi.
Yes, and it's with Steve it's with
Belushi.
Belushi, the right, bad Belushi, the not funny Belushi.
Replace Belushi with Neelix, and then 7 of 9 gets to be Arnold. And
I mean, I could buy Jeri Ryan in a Russian accent. Like she's already like tall and imperious and blonde. That's
my fetish.
Yeah. Well, but I think your fetish actually shows up in the next scene, which is when they go to the ready room. You know, everyone's got their terrorist gear out.
Smoldering Catcher's there.
And there's Smoldering Catcher guy. Just let's take a moment to appreciate Lieutenant Ayala, shall we?
In reality, this guy is nothing, right? This dude gets one line of dialogue, I think, in the entire fucking series, and for all intents and purposes is just a persistent background guy with very little agency in any scene that he is ever in, right?
Correct.
That's what the script would lead you to believe. But the force of personality that this guy has is someone you would never fuck with, right?
He's got this brick jaw that he has maintained through this entire run of this series, right? Like his look has not faded an inch, right? He's always got that mean mugging sort of like iron will kind of steely-eyed determination to him.
He's looking around the room like everybody's in character, like we're space people. He's like, I'm a lacrosse player and these are a bunch of fucking nerds. And if anybody tries to make me look stupid, I'm going to fucking punch him in the mouth. And that's the look this guy's got on his face the whole time. And it sells this persona of like, this dude's serious business. And if you have just freshly taken over the ship and it is time to establish your new court and you might have to do some executions, this is the guy you want in the room as your enforcer.
And this outfit is just the most amazing thing. You have to wonder how it is that he's dressing up for the day, right? Like, Ayala, I'm going to put on my fatigues for working in my Maquis murder ship.
I live in a post-scarcity society. I can have literally anything I want.
Everyone's kind of going with this sort of, urban fatigue look. Okay,
I'm going to dress like a goonie.
I'm going to put on these giant padded shoulder vest thing that makes it look like I'm calling balls and strikes. Like, and they busted out again for him for this scene. I'm
gonna dress like I'm an undead character starting off in WoW.
And they put him in the back of the room with a phaser rifle to like stare daggers at Tuvok, and he's literally there to execute Tuvok if Tuvok does not show sufficient loyalty to the crown. That's what this guy's doing in this scene, and I love it. I love it.
This scene's actually pretty cool, right? So Tuvok has been instrumental to leading this rebellion. I'll go ahead and say it. I mean, I was upset when they turned the Doctor into a two-dimensional villain back in with the fucking Equinox.
Yeah.
Was it Equinox?
Mm-hmm. It was Equinox.
So just as bad as it looked when the Doctor has his ethics subroutine disabled and he becomes
your weakest shit award,
Dr. Evil, I will say it is pretty silly that through a brief mind meld that such subversive mesmerisms are able to be put in place. If these guys were all acting robotic or dazed or just completely off, that would be one thing. But for all intents and purposes, this is Chakotay and this is Torres and this is these other characters, except for the fact that all loyalty has been erased and they've been like reset to the pre-caretaker mode, right? So it's dumb. And again, I think if this was earlier, before 7 years of being through the thick and thin together, it would have been a little bit better. Whatever. That's weak. It's stupid. It's shitty. These scenes here, pretty cool. So, despite the fact that Tuvok has impregnated everybody with these rebellious tendencies and given rebirth to an active, thriving Maquis, at the end of the day, he's still a dirty traitor that got them all caught in the first place. So, as you were saying, he has to prove his loyalty. So Chakotay drags up Janeway from the brig and hands Chakotay and Phaser and says, "There you go, buddy. Prove your loyalty."
It's the classic I knew the gun wasn't loaded moment where he has to assess, do I point this weapon I have been told is set to kill at Janeway and pull the trigger? And he does in fact do so, pulls the trigger, nothing happens, it is not charged, his loyalty has been proven, guard is immediately put down, and of course that is when Tuvok's like, excellent, neck crab, let me erase all of that brain stuff I did to you, sorry, we need to fix this. And again, no explanation for why it is Tuvok has beaten the conditioning, it's just clear that he has, that he knew that he wasn't going to kill Janeway, and that is when we get a very rushed end where they go back out and they're like, this planet we're about to put everybody on isn't correct. We need to find a new one. And brainwashed B'Elanna's like, you're full of shit. And they're like, nah, well, we got guns now, so fuck off. And then they immediately start, they're in the brig, you know, and they're like, sorry, Kathy, I'm sorry about that. It's my bad. It's my bad. She actually looks pissed. She looks pissed at Chakotay, like, we done? We done with this? Are we done with rebellion now? How about that, champ? Remember when you tried to fuck me and I picked the monkey instead of you? There's a reason for that.
No hard feelings to be found. They get over this mutiny faster than Tom got over being a lizard and having lizard babies with Janeway.
Yeah. The next scene is they're like, let's go watch a movie together.
Yeah, literally.
That was a wacky adventure we just had.
I remember we had a long-deserved mutiny. We all shot each other. That was crazy. Hey, I got this really cool voyeur simulator. You guys want to go check it out?
Yeah, let's watch Creatures of the Black Lagoon. Seems legit. And, you know, they go in, C7, get Neelix. Everyone's there. And then Janeway just sits down.
Where have you guys been? We were just on a zany adventure where the Maquis had an uprising. Oh, we've just been fucking like rabbits here in the holodeck in front of all these holo characters. It's been great.
Apparently, man, what a fucking pairing that would be. What a fucking pairing. 7 of 9 and Neelix falling like madly in love with each other. Oh, like not reserved at all. Like they're each other's fetish.
In my mind, I wanted to just suddenly like have a picture of Jerry Ryan's boobs in those tight outfits, and instead, in my mind, I saw Neelix's feet with his toes fused together, and I think I'm gonna be sick. It was like I thought I was like putting a spoon of sugar in my mouth, and it was like rancid milk.
Speaking of being sick, this episode sucked.
This was one of the worst episodes in a long time.
Hold on. There was maybe it's because it's a couple months.
This is basic bad. This isn't like criminal, genre distorting, Q in the gray. This isn't like the malicious trudge of Elogium, but this is just some overly basic, boring poop around time. I mean, there's some laughs to be had in here, certainly. I did like
you mentioned one small step earlier. You referenced it when you mentioned I'm sure glad we had that episode where Chakotay nearly gets everyone killed trying to find some fucking old NASA spacecraft. It's that kind of bad. That's like right where this kind of lives, which is why does this episode exist?
Why is this season 7?
It's just kind of generically shitty. But I can answer the why is this season 7. It's because they felt like they needed to do a Maquis thing before they wrapped the show up, and this is what.
And again, this would have been fine as a season 4, maybe even a season 5. It's too late for this story, and if this is your send off goodbye to the Maquis plotline, what a terrible botch. I think there's way better stories that could have been told here. If you wanted some sort of a Tuvok dealing with internal trauma, exploring things with Lon Suter and the darkness that lives in Tuvok could have been great. There was a good part in this episode when Chakotay's initially throwing Janeway in the brig, where Janeway's trying to rationalize like what's going on,
reason with Chakotay
and be like, listen, dude, we are forever away from the Alpha Quadrant. Like, you are the only Maquis left. What Cardassians are to kill? This is silly, but he just kind of brushes it off. There could have been a good Maquis story to tell here with an actual loyalist element within the Maquis trying to plan out, like, listen, when we get back, we're gonna have to, and that conspiracy coming to light, and the Maquis having to turn on themselves and make a conscious decision, like, are we still these people, or is it time to grow and exercise that element out of us? And none of that gets brought up here. Instead, what we get is an episode with really some of the worst elements at play in Voyager. We've got Detective Tuvok, which is terrible. Heavy play on dreams and hallucinations, which is terrible. You've got Tom and B'Elanna relationship, which is terrible. You've got Maquis fatigues, which is terrible. It's just
Maquis fatigues are awesome. They're awesome. Terrible. They're different kind of terrible. They're terribly bad.
Listen, man,
we got to see the Smoldering Catcher guy outfit.
I'll give you a pass on Smoldering Catcher, but every time I see, and especially, you're gonna keep these fucking clothes around after the coworker murder simulator, where like everybody has played through shooting you wearing these clothes over and over again. Like, I think that Tuva or that Chakotay after a certain point, but like, man, that vest looks fucking stupid on me. I'm gonna throw that thing out. I'm never wearing that again. No, he has it still stowed under his bed, ready to go. This is a silly episode. This is a bad episode.
Well, it is a silly episode. It is a bad episode, and it is behind us now. So what are we watching next week?
Moving on, we are going into season 7, episode 5, Critical Care, and there is Neelix and Janeway standing out in the hallway. The Doctor is kidnapped from Voyager by an alien who sells him and his mobile emitter to a hospital hovering above a densely populated planet. High stakes. You kind of get a little bit of a feeling from Virtuoso, where the Doctor has left to go to a greater purpose. Sounds like they're going to be stationing him somewhere in Bespin, the Cloud City. And I would say this seems interesting. Joe, do you remember this?
I do. It's good.
Well, it's going to take some Picardo to pull us out of this rut that regression or repression has left us in.
I agree. And I apologize for being so badly incorrect in assessing this as something I remembered not being terrible. I don't know where that came from. This was just god-awful, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry it was this bad. I'm sorry that we have been led down this road.
We'll see where we go from here, man.
All right. Thanks to everybody listening to Future Please Hate Voyage Delta Quadrant. We appreciate you. Email us. Find us on Twitter. Find us on Facebook group. Find us on Patreon. You know the drill. See you next week.